Yeah, thanks a lot, Prashant. Thanks a lot, Aman, for those insights and data points. Very good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining the event today. I hope you and your family keeping safe and staying indoors. So without further delay, I'll probably start off the session with a quick round of introductions. Today, we have with us Sriram TV, who is the Vice President, Human Resources and Center Head for Coimbatore for Robert Bosch. And we also have with us Mr. Vishal Gautam, who's a Senior Director, Engineering and Site Managing Director for Zscaler. Welcome, both Vishal and Sriram. I think what we will do over the next 40-45 minutes or so is basically just understand, from your journeys, basically understand the typical inflection points, challenges, how your presence in emerging locations has helped both the emerging location itself scale, has helped the parent, has generally helped you look at a different sort of a strategy to support the organization itself at large, right? And the nuances that come along with it. So maybe I'll start off with you, Sriram. At the start of the journey, what are the sort of key drivers? What are the important reasons for Bosch to look at Coimbatore and establish a center there and take it to such a big scale that it has at this point in time? So it would be great to hear from you what they did specifically at that point in time.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Vishwanath, and good morning, all of you. Nice to be having an opportunity to talk to all of you. Vishwanath, you can confirm that if you're able to hear me clearly and see me well in the video, right?
Perfect.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah. So it was not an overnight decision. It was not an overnight decision. So we rapidly grew in Bangalore, and we are a 100% subsidiary of Bosch, and we are the largest offshore development center for Bosch worldwide. Yeah, and we had grown to a sizable number in Bangalore, and of course there is always in the good times talent war and all that. And so beyond a certain thing, there is always also this concept of de-risking, not putting all your eggs in one basket, point number one, and also kind of having a business continuity. So we had reached a stage where we had grown beyond 10,000, 12,000, 13,000, 14,000. So we definitely felt a need to have a second location. India is a large country, talent is available across. The work from home concept was not existing as it has pervaded all of us now. So there was definitely a need for a second location. So the primary reasons, to be very crisp to your questions, are de-risking, and business continuity. So it is. It's not about, Coimbatore is good in IoT, therefore I went to Coimbatore, or Coimbatore is good in such thing, therefore. So it's about de-risking, it's about business continuity, therefore it was a need was felt to have a second location, and therefore we looked for a second location. Yeah. Okay. Why Coimbatore? Was that also your question, or maybe I should reserve that for your next question?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So actually, again, we didn't choose Coimbatore overnight. I mean, I was appalled to see Aman sharing his analysis. More or less, we did a similar analysis for ourselves. We started with of course, we were determined that we should not go to a tier one again, because we also had the advantages and disadvantages of a so-called tier one, even though Bangalore is not one of the 4 metropolitan cities, but it was definitely a tier one and a happening city, Silicon Valley. So we wanted to go a little bit to enjoy the advantages of a slightly smaller city. So we had made up our mind that we should go for a tier 2 city. So we did an extensive analysis. You will not believe, including some of the Germans came down and they understood our cities even better than us. So we started with 20 cities in India, shortlisted 6, shortlisted 3, and then out of the 3, finally Coimbatore came out, and I was very happy to see that the 6 cities that we more or less shortlisted figured in Aman Sharma's presentation. So it was Jaipur, Bhubaneswar. So the last three were Jaipur, Bhubaneswar, and Coimbatore, and then we tagged on to Coimbatore. Of course, we also had certain our specific reasons apart from the general criteria that you consider in terms of other reasons. So we chose Coimbatore. So if you ask why Coimbatore, top three, one is education. Yeah, Coimbatore, not today. Even when I was studying engineering and there were only 7 colleges in the state, okay, 3 of them were in Coimbatore. So it had the trend. It's not that after the self-financing institutes at private engineering colleges started, that Coimbatore have got more institutions. It already had this. Even if you take arts and science engineering, well, there are multiple very good standard educational institutions in Coimbatore. And so when the time that we came in, Coimbatore was churning out about 16,000 engineers every year. So that was one of the very important factor for us to come to Coimbatore. The second most important was the entrepreneurialism of the population here. I mean, you can actually smell it if you just come and live here for 6 months to 1 year. You know, the entrepreneurialism is actually mixed with the society. The way they live their life is mixed with entrepreneurial. You know, Coimbatore doesn't wait for the government to set up things. You know, the society here and the private bodies and the entrepreneurs come together and do things. You know, they don't wait. They don't submit a petition to the government and wait for years together for things to happen. So it's a very self-functioning entrepreneurial society, which is definitely essential when you're opening when you're having aim to open a large company. So that was the second strong reason. Third is, of course, generally the government, whatever be the party or government, very, very supportive. And the ecosystem was very, very friendly towards starting a company. So these are the 3 primary reasons why we chose Coimbatore. Yeah.
Got it. Just moving over to you, Vishal, sort of the same question, right? You represent an organization that's sort of very different in its culture and its size, perhaps, to a Robert Bosch, right? So what was the specific thinking behind looking at Chandigarh and looking at that scale at that point in time?
Yeah. Hello, Vishwanath. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and see you clearly.
Good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here. So I'm Vishal. Just a brief about Zscaler. Zscaler is as Aman said, we are a young company compared to Robert Bosch. We were founded in 2007 in the United States and also started in India around the same time, first in Bangalore and shortly after in Chandigarh. And we are in the space of providing security as a service, one of the first ones and now the largest provider in this space, serving many governments and large enterprises. So to your question, Vishwanath, it was very easy decision, or rather not a decision at all. So it connects to the founders. So Zscaler is founded by a gentleman named Jay Chaudhary and Kailash. So Jay is a serial entrepreneur. Prior to Zscaler, he had built many successful in the United States, in many successful startups, sold to the companies with the likes of SecureWorks, which was McAfee acquisition, later on another one to Motorola. So he had over these 3, 4, or 5 startups had already perfected the leveraging the benefits of working off of a tier 2 city. And Chandigarh, Mohali, Chandigarh area particularly, he had done in the past and made it successful. For Zscaler, it was pretty natural to start a center there, and we kind of inherited all the learnings from his past experiences. So that was how it started there.
Got it. Very interesting. So specifically in your journeys, were there organic inflection points? More so, I want to understand what were those sort of critical, booster shots, so to speak, that you got that gave you those spurts in growth. It could have been sort of new products being delivered from those centers. It could be anything. So just want to understand your view on that.
Absolutely. So just to give an idea about the size, so we are currently in India 1,200 plus employees. And initially, we started from Bangalore, almost the same time when the company was founded. We did have few employees from Chandigarh area working off of Bangalore. So, the idea was already there to seed the site, second site. Today, we have 700, nearly 700 employees in Mohali, and close to 400 or north of 400 in Bangalore. So, as you said, over these last 13 years or so, Mohali has taken over. So there are, I would say, the inflection points. See, one thing we have learned with the experience that certain talent types or certain teams function very well, especially for a company like Zscaler into product development and global customer base, 189 plus customer and countries. So one of the teams which really almost fully operates from there is finance team, and that team has grown really rapidly. I would say, especially after our IPO, even before IPO, for the preparation of IPO, 2018, we went public. So that team, and we were fortunate to have, maybe found some good leader who really are the anchor, and they've been there since pretty much the beginning of the company. That is one of the very critical part, and they're right solid, having a solid anchor, and the workforce largely recruited from fresher talent pool as well as lateral. So for certain type of domain or skills, you have good talent available, readily available. For engineering, we grew more. Rather slower pace, working with Bangalore, working with headquarter. See, another unique thing about our operating principles is we do not separate the locations by type of product. Like this particular product, India will develop, or this will be done in Mohali, or this in Bangalore. Our teams are much more intertwined and distributed. And that what it gives a big benefit is helps groom the talent when they work directly with senior people in remote locations.
Got it. So Sriram, just shifting gears a little bit, you head the HR function, right, at Robert Bosch. So what do you see as key challenges? There's a perception that talent acquisition sometimes is a challenge for specific kind of roles in these locations, right? Is that true? Secondly, if you have a team that's organically growing within the location, it's very difficult to give them that career path, give them that global leadership exposure from the same center. And therefore, you might have to sort of have the role transition into another center. These are things that we've heard. These are perceptions. I would love to hear your views on whether that is true. And if so, how are you circumventing and addressing some of those challenges?
Yeah, very good and relevant question. While I talked about the availability of fresh engineers, which is definitely even now we enjoy, we get a very good number of fresh engineers. We knew the problem and we also went through it. The 3 to say 8 years experienced laterals, which are the key for any functioning, say, software or IT organization, is not available in abundance in Coimbatore. So in a normal time, people would have gone away to the other cities and they would be working. Only the fresh engineers are available in abundance, and therefore this was definitely a problem. But the thing is, if you want a quick solution within 1-2 years, if you want everything perfect, it doesn't work. We have invested. We have spent a long time in growing this location. We brought some of our engineers, managers from Bangalore, giving them some, motivation to come here. We worked on this. We set up labs. We invested in the infrastructure, and we made Coimbatore a seamless alternate location to Bangalore. So we offered a career that is absolutely the same. That nothing today, if you see a guy working in our company in Coimbatore can grow as much or faster in Bangalore. There's no disadvantages of a tier 2, but I'll tell you, it takes some time. You got to invest. You got to train people. You got to bring others from outside. You got to increase their exposure. So if you really have a long-term view, and if you want to develop a location, you can do that. But having said that, I agree that the supply of lateral talents in the range of say 3 to 8, 10 years is less in Coimbatore. And what is high? The fresh talent is available. And also the other point which I noticed Aman was talking about, we get enough good young managers, because there are people who have gone out of Coimbatore and worked in the industry 10, 15 years, and they want to come back if they get a good opportunity, and if they get a good, multinational kind of a company opportunity, they would love to come back, because they can have both the things in their hand. They can have good work, good exposure, as well as they can come back to their hometown. So we got really good young leaders who had gone to a Chennai, or gone to Hyderabad, or who had gone to Mumbai. They found that here is an opportunity. I've got experience in embedded software, and now I'm a project manager. I'm a business manager, and I have an opportunity to work in a multinational, but I can at the same time. So we could get this population as well, very much. Right. But the in-between population is what we struggled a little bit. Even now, the supply, I wouldn't say it's in abundance, but once you are an established center, even this range people would want to come back. But when you're in the growing phase, there is definitely some difficulty in doing this. The last second aspect, yes, definitely exposure is less. Yeah, I can't say that it is good. The relative exposure that a young growing engineer gets in this tier 2 city. I mean, when I say exposure, there are multiple things. You can't just get training program and organized learning is different from the exposure that you get. The population around you. You just go to a hackathon today, go to a coding competition tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that in Coimbatore. And I got to really, you got to put your mind, maybe go somewhere else. And so this thing is definitely a disadvantage, which we are trying to address by alternate mechanisms. Okay, and then if you grow a bit large, then you can kind of, have your own arrangements to do all this. We send people to Bangalore, and all this we do. So if you are able to, offer all these things, then over a period of time, you can kind of win over this or circumvent this. But even today, if you ask me, there is one disadvantage of tier 2 city, that's the exposure. That's the exposure. I would even attribute it. I would even say that even the colleges, for example, they're academically very, very strong. The people have a strong base when they come out of the college, but the exposure that these colleges get to the industry, to the kind of environment they are put to, the final year projects that they do, definitely there is a difference in tier 2. But if you have so many other advantages, you have to work on them. You have to have a better, like we have a very, very strong university engagement program. We go and teach there. We help them we invest in automotive labs. We have set up labs in many colleges in and around us. So we go teach there. We participate in their academia, setting their curriculum and all that. So if you have a long-term plan, it's possible. But yeah, there are things that you have to overcome, circumvent.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting point you mentioned, right? People coming back to their hometowns after having spent a good number of years outside. So when we talk about migratability, reverse migratability, specifically with respect to the pandemic times that we are in, do you think that has sort of become more organic now? And do you think people will sort of look at, continuing this lifestyle for the rest of, say, the next few years? And therefore, some of the work, the hiring pressures on companies like yours might reduce even in that 3-2A middle management category.
Yeah, so you opened up a newer topic. Actually, it's nothing specific to Coimbatore. It is definitely. I mean, today we just took, based on the IP address of their remote login, we just took statistics, wanted to know where our employees are, and it like the map that Aman had put up. People, we were surprised to see people are spread all over. When we had only 2 centers, but now we have people working from Noida, people working from Chandigarh, people working from Hyderabad, people working from Bhubaneswar, whatnot. So we actually, in a way, were pleasantly surprised that we had good regional diversity in Bangalore and Coimbatore. Even though we were located, we had people across India. Definitely, I think I also saw some of the questions on the thing that people definitely are now wondering if I can do the work from sitting in my own hometown. It's not only about work from home. It's also about the possibility of working with the companies existing all over the country. So this is definitely opened up. We are seriously thinking of not being located only in 1 or 2 locations. but being located in certain key parts of the country across. So this definitely opened it up. I mean, I'm seeing it as two different things. Work from anywhere, work from home is a concept, but at the same time, having your offices. I mean, we'll talk about work from home maybe later. I don't want to get into that. That's another bigger topic. But I think definitely this is an opportunity for companies to look beyond one or two locations and to be spread a little bit, because that's going to become the culture. Not all of them coming to one place, but kind of distributed. This is what we see as
Right.
things are turning around now.
Right, a concept of almost a satellite office presence in some of these cities. And got it. Vishal, coming quickly to you, you mentioned that the pace of growing your engineering teams was, not as high as perhaps some other teams in these locations, right? So basically, if that was a challenge, how did you circumvent that, right? You already had a presence in Bangalore. Did that help? I saw a question on how is it different if you're setting up from scratch in a tier 2 city. So I think what I'm trying to ask is a mix of both. Were you able to leverage your Bangalore presence for your engineering growth in Chandigarh in some ways? And at the same time, if you are looking at Chandigarh in silo, how would you have solved that problem?
Yeah. So absolutely, Vishwanath, the presence in Bangalore helped tremendously for the tech talent. So we solved in multiple ways. First is fresher campus recruitment. Over 60%, of all hires in India are have their origins in university for a Zscaler. So very young talent pool that way. And I remember, 10 years plus ago, Zscaler being a very humble startup, struggling to kind of, come up with. So I had to take from New Delhi a bus, ISBT bus stand, bus to Chandigarh to get there. And on the way, basically, before my bus time was there, in the nearby restaurant, I had arranged an interview for an engineer. She was Noida based. We ended up hiring her, and she turned out to be a great hire. So like that, organically, we built, but primarily the initial team in the engineering side actually was on the QA side. QA talent, testing talent, we figured that was more easier to find, and engineers were working together with in Bangalore as well as headquarters. And then we started the proper product teams, starting completely with fresher hire, campus hires, but being led by teams directly in our headquarters. So we are, I would say, very distributed, probably notoriously bad about working distributed manner. So engineers work directly with other counterparts in the other geos, and that helped really groom up that team over the period. And now those engineers who were fresher at one time are leaders. And the scale is much now. Our intake for engineering teams has been much higher. However, there are pitfalls. Like Sriram was also pointing out, not everything is rosy. One of the things what I would like to point out, having the backup, meaning the support from the leaders in headquarters is a major factor. For us, from top down, it was always a big support from the founder himself, but that doesn't really make the job easy. Eventually, as the company grows, there are other leaders who are building up a team, and they need to believe in. They need to have some. Takes patience. It's a long process. Like again, Sriram mentioned, you have to be there for long haul. So there are teams where we try to start a new team for them, teams in the headquarters, but they had no prior experience of working with the remote teams, and it didn't succeed as well for tier 2. So mostly where we had teams in the headquarters with leaders from India origin were more comfortable and had some prior experience, because it does take initial patience of initial duration for the team to kind of mature.
Understood. So just looking at another aspect, which is slightly more operational in nature, when you're looking to scale a tier 2 center, and when you have a HQ, right? There's some dynamics around how do you ensure parity, how do you ensure true equality between the two centers. Were there challenges you had there, or from the get-go there are things that you do? If you want to talk about some initiatives or specific things that you want to drive. So this is both for both. Maybe Vishal, you can take a shot at it first, and Sriram, you can come.
Yeah, I'll just take an example of Campus Hire itself. We used to keep the compensation different based on the types of colleges we are going. And eventually we found that, a star student from a little bit lower tier college performs same or even better. And they anyway come to know about this difference. And it was just not going well. So we removed that kind of differences. So tier 2 colleges or tier 1 colleges, doesn't matter. If they're joining the same team, the comp remains the same. However, we do have comp differences between locations. So tier 2, so there is a difference of, I would say, 20% comp difference between the two locations, but other benefits, they're all the same. Growth path is pretty much, again, over the years, this was a challenge initially. Everybody wanted to, as a startup, for their next thing, they wanted to move to US, or Canada. Later on, they wanted to move to Bangalore. So we had to put that, solve that problem, and we kind of consciously did not allow inter-city transfers, just to, with a small group, and it can become a trend. But rather build the growth path in those areas, in those city itself, Mohali itself. So that has taken care of in that manner. Shriram, maybe you can add.
Sriram, I think you're on mute. Are you able to hear us? Okay, I think there's some connectivity issue maybe Sriram is facing. So just looking at that, right, Vishal, so you said there are slight differences. You want to ensure that on average, everything is at par, right? But at the same time, doesn't that somewhere make it a little, doesn't that incentivize some of your employees to sort of say, hey, I want to look at a slightly different growth path, and in a way subtly push for that movement anyway, right? Even if you don't enable it.
So we haven't seen, really, especially with the pandemic time, Vishwanath, the folks who wants to move back closer to family. So for them, initially this 20% of comp difference was a bigger factor. Benefits wise, anyway, it is all the same growth path we have made pretty much.
One moment. I think Sriram, you're on mute. I think you're trying to say something, but I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. You're able to hear me now?
Yeah. So I think Vishal was just finishing up on his point, and we'll just get back to you in half a minute or so.
Yeah.
We are able to hear you, Sriram. Yeah.
So I was just making this point that, with this, especially the recent...
Hello?
Yes, Sriram, we can hear you.
We can hear you and see you.
I think he can't hear us, looks like. Yeah, so Vishwanath, what I was saying is with these, the recent changes or the dynamics, folks are more easily accepting that 20% difference in comp because they have the opportunity to, be closer to their family.
Got it. Sriram, can you hear us now? Okay, I think he's relogging in. Which should hopefully fix the problem. Where do you see things going forward, specifically for the growth in Chandigarh itself, right? Are you looking at, you said all of your products are developed in all of your locations globally, right? There's sort of equal portfolio ownership that you have in terms of your products that you have currently. Does that mean you're, in a way, always going to be growing all of the centers equally? Because that's a big indicator of how you're going to grow? Or is there a specific focus which is geography-wise, location-wise for that particular site strategy?
So, good question, Vishwanath. I would say it's not equally across all departments. I was talking about the engineering-wise, the product or task distributions. But when it comes to across the departments, there are certain skill sets which are much more easily available. So naturally, those departments, for example, I mentioned finance earlier. Customer support is another one. Global customer, that's one of the first groups we started in Mohali, and it's now Mohali and Bangalore are the whole of our majority of, not entire, but majority of our worldwide tech support comes out of these two centers. Then there are talent, which is very good for marketing and lead gen kind of initiatives. Here this talent, because English speaking language skills are very good in North India. And you get, because of the other companies' presence there, you mentioned earlier, Aman mentioned earlier, that talent is very well available. So those teams certainly grow faster and are much bigger. It doesn't make sense for us to invest that in the Bangalore, and Bangalore is more focused on the niche kind of a talent where, maybe the deeper tech side and senior talent. But we do have, good fresher intake in Bangalore as well, because that keeps the balance, in a particular site itself.
Understood. So there's an interesting question that maybe I'll take right now, Vishal, from one of the audience. The question is basically, how do you see, with hybrid work models, with work from home happening with other larger established organizations also, there's going to be a massive talent war for similar talent. You're perhaps going to be competing with other organizations in Chandigarh that you were not probably pre-pandemic, right? So how does that put things into perspective for you?
Actually, we are seeing the competition is not with the other organization in Mohali or Chandigarh Tri-City area. It's competition with any other organization in India. Right. That's what is happening. And we've seen increased attrition in both centers, tier 2 as well as tier 1. The attrition, I would say the gap, I was looking at the numbers, still remains the same. About, I would say in our case, 4 to 6% difference. So Bangalore attrition is 4 to 6% higher than Mohali. But if you see the pre-pandemic time, both of the centers had a lower attrition by, I would say, 8% or maybe even 6 to 8% or more. So there is a difference there. We are seeing a greater attrition because people are getting opportunities anywhere to work from home, permanent work from home options. That's a big challenge. It's been offset by the other factor that there are folks who want to come closer, as I mentioned earlier. And I did see some questions. Why would one want a tier 2 center when people can work effectively from home? So again, this might differ from company to company. But at our company, certainly we do value that interaction in the office. There are certain things which is just not happening. So there will be a hybrid model if you ask me what going forward. So they do provide, the centers will provide value there. And to answer you, there is a higher attrition because of the competition from across all cities in India. Yeah.
Great. Sriram, can you hear us clearly now? We are able to hear you and see you.
Looks like, again.
Yeah, I think your video is off, Sriram, but if you can say something and check if we can hear you. Okay, I think there are still technical issues at this end. So that is interesting, Vishal, where you mentioned that the attrition has indeed gone on, perhaps suggesting that there is, potentially a larger competition coming in for the similar size of talent pool. And to your second point, in terms of working from home, will that have an impact? I think that will. The impact there is as good as the impact on any metro or a tier 1 location, right? So I think that is a point well understood. Going forward, you mentioned that there are specific areas you're equally looking at growing some of the centers, but there are certain functions that are going to be more sort of in, the growth story, more relevant for certain locations. But where do you see from an overall organizational perspective, right? How do you look at building an organizational structure in terms of the global leadership roles? I think Sriram earlier mentioned that at a senior management level there were some challenges in terms of finding the right people. How do you circumvent
Yeah,
those? Do you also
I can
have
hear
those?
you now, but yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But there is a delay or a chatter or something. I don't know why. My connection is okay, but I don't know why. But you can go ahead with the question. Let me see if I can listen to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sriram, the question is, I think this was one of the questions that
Go
the
ahead with the
audience
question,
had.
Vishwa.
Yeah.
Vishwanath.
Yeah. So the question was, how do you, with
Hello?
yeah, we can hear you, Sriram.
Hello.
Some lag is there, yeah. Maybe you can turn off video, yeah, and then.
Yeah, I think you can hear us, but after half a minute or so,
Hello?
because of which.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sriram. Sriram, maybe you can try logging in from another device if possible.
Are you able to hear me, Vishwa, now?
Yes, I'm able to hear you. What about you?
Are you able to hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I'm able to hear you, Sriram, but I think there is a lag. You're hearing me much later than when I'm speaking. Okay, no problem. I think maybe Sriram could sort of take those questions on the chat if possible as a response to those. So, Vishal, coming back to my question, I think the question I wanted to ask was around how do you grow that talent pyramid? How do you grow that organization structure in a efficient way, right? Where you have a technical career path that folks who are joining the company aspire to, where you have a specific sort of span of control, how typically organizations grow, right? How do you ensure that? Do you keep it similar to your HQ? Do you keep it similar to your Bangalore location? How do you circumvent those challenges?
Right. So we have, in our case, Vishwanath, we have kept the structures similar. So Bangalore and Mohali, there is no difference in terms of the hierarchy. And even we also made, I would say, changes, particularly talking about an area outside my domain, but the customer support team, which spans across both. So we tried and played around with both types of model where leaders in Mohali would have reportees only from Mohali, and likewise for Bangalore. But then there was, the experience was there was some kind of this location difference thing coming in the mindset, which was not very productive. And then, we tried the other model where a leader in Mohali could have reportees from the other location as well. And that seemed to have fared better. So anything, you have to experiment, with your teams. The factor is there are many factors involved, function, the location, the companies, and the skill sets. So this is what worked for us. In case of engineering, it's slightly different. The teams are more aligned or connected with headquarters more than the customer support, because customer support has larger presence here. And headquarters kind of acts as an anchor. And that's how we all blended together and have an equal.
Okay, Vishwa, go ahead with the question. Your voice is breaking for me. Okay,
Okay, can you hear me now, Sriram?
Maybe Sriram, you can try the mobile phone way of connecting.
Yeah, exactly. There is a delay.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask the question and then we can wait for a bit and then get the answer from you, Sriram. So what we are trying to understand is...
I will try to log in through my mobile parallel.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there is a delay, Vishwanath.
Yeah.
Just making a joke that tier 2 cities sometimes have problems like this also. Just kidding.
I think going by the infrastructure challenges, then I think Bangalore then eventually would get defined under that as well on a lighter note. So just taking a step back and looking at the ecosystem as a whole, right, Vishal, not just looking at Chandigarh or Coimbatore for 1 second. How do you see this ecosystem evolving? I think Sriram spoke about the richness of the ecosystem in terms of fresher talent coming in, their collaborations with universities and institutes. Do you think there is a true story, and do you think the timing is right for even other emerging locations to be considered seriously by organizations, either as a second center or as a center where they're starting from scratch? If the stars align, if they are able to anyway get the talent that's working remotely as part of that satellite office down the line, right? So where do you think the story is going to go?
I think one of the things pandemic has done very, very effectively is taken out this doubt that, work cannot be done from home. That is, I think nobody has any question. In fact, productivity in our case alone has gone up. Zscaler being in a industry which provides security for people working from home. So you can imagine what the pandemic has done for us. We have nearly doubled our workforce during the pandemic time, including about 58% growth in tier 2 city. Slightly more in, almost 70% in Bangalore. So I think that doubt is gone from the company. So now it's about the other factors. Why would you want to look at tier 2? If you have, strong connections, again, answer would depend on whether it's a startup or a bigger company. And for a larger company, like in Bosch's case, Sriram mentioned, cost saving and de-risking could be a big factor. And now you are sure the talent would be there and would be willing to come. For a startup, I would say ecosystem does matter a lot. And while ecosystems are improving, government schemes are improving, they are, to me at least, it's not a day and night difference. It happens gradually. In our case itself, I can imagine from 10 years ago, the kind of office we were in, of course, company position or evolution was at a different stage. But we have seen many more tech parks coming up, in the Tri-City area. So, we were in the Rajiv Gandhi Tech Park once, where Infosys big campus is there. Now we're into Mohali. So cost is a huge infrastructure-wise. It's certainly a huge savings compared to Bangalore grade A buildings, almost 50%. So that being an incentive for larger companies and for startups, I think ecosystem, I would say personally, unless the founder is from there, just going out to a new city for a startup could be a risky thing. But if someone has a strong, deep roots or connection, then like you mentioned, Car-Deco or Automation Anywhere, all of them have that story of a founder being, and Zscaler also is kind of falls into the same. That would still apply for younger startups, in my opinion. Yeah.
Understood. So I think that's a very specific answer you gave for depending on the size of the company, depending on what they want to achieve, right? So do you think if there's a company of your size, is there a tier 2 location that needs a separate charter, a separate identity, maybe which helps in branding them in that particular ecosystem, talent acquisition? Or do you think there is a alignment to the, so say a Bangalore location or a HQ that is more important? Because there's always a discussion about localization versus sort of equity across different centers, right? So where do you stand on that?
I would say localization here, not standardization, because it depends upon the kind of talents available. So for us, it's very clear, what kind of teams do well in Chandigarh and Tri-City area compared. So we're not going to force to create the same thing here. But at the same time, the teams where we do want, you can call it de-risking, and we do want some cross balancing. We don't want to segregate, this center only for this team, but primarily that's the main team there. But, other centers can have, some portion of it, especially with pandemic, we have started expanding those core teams in other areas. But to answer your question, yes, each, to me, a center or location represents, the charter in terms of the talent pool available there and what they are really have become good at.
Got it. Got it. So thanks a lot for your time, Vishal and Sriram. I think Sriram just dropped a message saying he's still having some issues and therefore he's unfortunately dropping off. But this was really insightful. We got nothing like the industry folks talking about their journey and giving a view of how your challenges were addressed specific to your company and to Posh itself. So thanks a lot for your time. I think if there are any other questions that we have, we can probably pass those on to you on offline, and maybe we can sort of get an answer from you over an email. So thanks a lot again. This was really enriching. I think it gave us a very good view of how organizations could look at, even the existing ones who have centers could look at their strategy, and the ones who don't, perhaps what are the answers that they should seek before they set out. So thanks a lot for that again. Prashant, do we have time for questions, or how are we placed right now?
So there was a couple of questions that was asked for when Aman was presenting. Aman, you already have the questions. If you can take a couple of quick questions for next 30 seconds.
I'm just looking at, so Nitin from Evolent Health had asked, in terms of international connectivity, hasn't the importance gone down? Yes, definitely. That's something we've observed, that the importance has gone down. Even in our framework, we've also adjusted the level in terms of what we were giving to the connectivity. In terms of international connectivity, we've actually scaled down its importance in the framework itself. So that's something which is there. However, I mean, when you're going for a tier 2 location in terms of a long-term view, you would still wanna go to a place where it still has the infrastructure. Whether you use it or not is something it's up to you. But at least having the basic infrastructure that could be required over a 10-15 year period is something that you would probably look at when you're going to a new location and setting up operations. So that's something that we've observed. I'm just going through in terms of the questions that I can see. I'll just quickly answer as many as possible. The numbers for installed talent, are these people working in the company space there? Yes, this is actually a view of organizations that are present there and the people working in those organizations, and not the talent which is kind of migrated there. So that's to that question. How is availability of lateral talent in tier 2 cities? So this is, I think Vishal answered it really well, right? There are certain roles or certain kind of roles which typically are present in a few cities. So you need to be sure of in terms of what role are you really looking at. Some cities do have the presence of really skilled senior talent available. So I gave an example like Ahmedabad has significantly higher number of experienced staff for most of the skills, which is more than 5-6 years of experience. So that tells you, right, the talent is available. It's just that you need to figure out what exactly is the talent that you're looking at. And for this thing, I think for this particular aspect, we feel that understanding the talent landscape of a location when you're setting out in the first place, right? Having a view in terms of what are the key skills that you will need over the next 3-5 years talent, right? In terms of the future roadmap for the organization. So you should look at that and probably map out the talent landscape and then set out if you've not already done that when you're looking at a tier 2 location. Apart from this, I see a question: what challenges do you see in tier 2 cities in terms of further scaling up? It's a relative thing. I think relative question, I feel. What is the exact size that you're looking at for an organization in a tier 2 space? What we've seen, a lot of organizations have done really well at about 500-700 people in tier 2 locations. Probably a center size of 1,000 plus is something which we've seen as a challenge, but we've just seen the likes of Robert Bosch doing that, right? And doing that really well. And even examples of Schlumberger, who already has a center which is about 1,200, 1,300 people or even more. So that tells you, right? I mean, it's not that it is not possible, but then you need to create an ecosystem around that your center. You need to have the right university, college tie-ups to ensure that you have talent moving in. You need to have the right recruiter partners as well, which is very important to ensure that they're able to hire for you in the right stipulated time. That's again an important aspect. There's a question in terms of how do you build seed team for your second tech center? I think it's very important to highlight or identify the champions of change in an organization, right? For example, you have a center in Bangalore and you have a team and you're probably looking at, say, I'll give an example of Coimbatore, right? And you have a team of, say 5-7 people who belong to that city and are open to the idea of probably becoming your champions of change. So if you identify that core team and have the presence of an HR leader and an operations head along with the strategy head who has the eyes and ears with the center head, I think that's the ideal scenario, which will help you ensure that you go with a tier 2 strategy and do really well. So that's an entire piece that you need to kind of build together to ensure that your tier 2 strategy really works out well. One more question, I think, before I'll probably stop. How compensation is managed between tier 1 and tier 2 cities for the same role and position? So we've seen a mix. There are organizations which say we will give out the same amount of salaries irrespective of the location. However, we've also seen an aspect where initially probably organizations giving not having a large gap in the salaries, but over a period of time ensuring the location aspect and the cost of living coming into the picture, that there is a larger gap over a 3-year period in terms of the salaries that is paid out for the same role across 2 different locations. So Bangalore would probably be getting paid higher as compared to Coimbatore, because you just end up spending that much more money just living in that particular city. So that's what it is. Anything? I think I'm already about 4 minutes up time. If you have more questions, you can probably reach out to us. Just write to us, write to Prashant, and I'm happy to kind of take up your questions in terms of any specific ask you have, and we can probably connect offline.
Yeah, definitely. So what I request all the attendees is, if you have any further questions, we'll take it offline, and post the session, please expect an email from us. We'll be sharing the recording as well as the executive summary of the presentation. And in case if you want to have any questions or want to have one-on-one call, we'll be happy to do that. Thank you so much, Aman, JC, Vishal, for the session. I'm very sure a lot of attendees would have found value out of it, and we look forward to hosting the next session, I think, in the near future.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for inviting you. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, everyone. Take care.